Do you feel like you never quite make the progress that you deserve? By the end of this video, you'll know how to set practice objectives in a way that leads to real progress in the areas that matter to you most. This is the approach that a lot of the great coaches have used to take their teams and players to the top of their respective sports. And I've seen great results myself when I've applied it to my own music practice. Now, planning your practice in advance and setting objectives is really important. Choosing what to practice and how to practice it can sometimes be just as important as doing the work itself in the practice room. Okay, it often feels more productive when you dive in straight away and get straight down to work. But actually some time spent thinking through what you're going to work on up front often pays off big time later on. And the more you do this, the easier it will get, and the more awareness you'll build up about your strengths, your weaknesses, what you want to work on, your playing as a whole. Really useful. Now here are the steps that you're going to take. First, pick the specific area that you're working on. What are the individual small things you can do that will make a difference? It's helpful to break things down into distinct specific areas where you can improve, rather than to have big, messy objectives. The clearer you can get about this, the better. And this is as much about deciding what you're not going to work on as what you are going to do. Pick one specific area where you're going to make real progress and be willing to let the other stuff go for a while. When your goals are tightly bounded like this, it's much easier to measure whether you've made that improvement you're looking for. And it's also much easier to let go the worry that you're not making progress in those other areas, because that's simply not your concern right now. Next, can you make an objective target for this small thing, which will show you when you've officially made significant progress? Now, this does a few things for you. It helps keep you motivated because you can see measurable progress. And it also tells you when you're done. You don't have to worry about feeling like I've got to keep hacking away at this forever as a definite endpoint. And it stops you relying on feelings and subjective judgment. Your feelings about whether you're doing something well or not are very dependent on your mood, can change from day to day, and you can feel very down about that. When you've got a specific measurement that you're going for, however, those feelings are taken out of the equation. Next up, what steps do you need to take to hit that target you've just set? Can you identify one exercise to work on that's going to move you in your desired direction? You don't need to achieve perfection here, and you don't need to cover every single aspect of it. You're just looking to see a significant improvement. Then, repeat. Once you've hit your desired target, it's time to reassess the situation and start the cycle again. It could be that you decide to go back and keep working on that same little area, take the next step in that journey to keep moving it up and up towards greater skill levels. Or it could be that you decide this is no longer the thing that's holding me back. I've made a little bit of a significant improvement there and it's time to work on something else. Either way, you're really consistently moving on, upping your game with things that really matter to you and definite progress. And this keeps you focused on doing the important things, but not sticking with them for too long. I remember one of my guitar students who was a reasonable beginner, working hard on speeding up his chord changes, and he did a great job, really focused, really dedicated, but he hadn't set a target of when to stop. And long after the point where he'd got them to the point where he could really progress his playing in a lot of other areas, kept at it, upping the speed, upping the speed, upping the speed. Very impressive, wasn't helping his playing at all. So this is going to help you keep that focus, always be working on the most important things. So let's look at a quick example. Here's a point of view of how someone working to improve their improvising might use this. The specific area we're going to pick to work on here is the ability to outline chord changes when you're improvising. So note, we're not talking about improving our improvising in general. We're not talking about adding a whole lot of vocabulary. We're not talking about getting more creative. All of those things are things you can do, but we're keeping it very simple, just one specific area. Now, the specific target we're going to set for this is our ability to connect arpeggios smoothly. This is fantastically useful for outlining chord changes, but it's not the whole thing. There's all sorts of other things we could work on, but we're just picking one. So the specific step we're going to choose here to work on as an exercise is to focus on just 2 chords, just one chord change, and we're going to pick each chord tone in the first chord and be able to connect it to the nearest chord tones in the next chord. Note again that there are lots of ways we could extend this exercise. We could have more notes before the chord change. We could have more notes after the chord change. We could have more than just 2 chords in there. But we're just picking one thing, keeping it simple, 2 chords, 1 note on each, that's it. And later, if we decide it's helpful, we can go round and put in more steps later on. And note overall just how small this final topic we've come up with is. It's tiny. But there's 2 really important things about it. First is that it's vital. If you can't do this well, then all the stuff that comes after it is going to be built on shaky foundations. It's really going to struggle. And the second is that it's going to give a definite improvement. If we work on this and we can connect our chords better, that is absolutely going to improve our ability to outline chord changes. So what do you need in order to actually implement this? Well, first of all, you've got to know what your goals are. What is really driving you musically? What is it exactly that you want to achieve? And it's beyond the scope of this video to go into this, but I'll put a link to something about that in the description below. And you also need to be really honest about where your biggest issues are. This is not about practicing what's going to make you feel good to play. This is about practicing the things that are going to make the biggest difference to the audience listening to you. So it's not always those flashy technical things that we often like to work on. It might be stuff such as improving your rhythmic sense, your ability to relax your muscles while you play, your articulation, can you play phrases beautifully legato, all those sorts of things. Now, if you haven't done them before, just going through those 2 assessments, what are my goals and what are my biggest issues really, that can be transformative in itself, even if you then don't go on and do the rest of the objective setting. But please, do go and do that, it's going to help massively. So once you've chosen that area for improvement, you need to pick one thing that you can work on, rather than listing all the possible ways that you can address this. This is about doing the minimum possible to take your playing to the next level, but doing it with real dedication and focus. Because ticking one small box really completely is usually going to get you a lot further than ticking a whole load of relevant boxes sloppily. And you can always come back and tick the other boxes later if you need to. You're also going to have to let go of the need to jump straight to perfection, both in your playing overall and in these things that you're working on. In your playing overall, because it's simply not possible to work on everything at the same time and see this progress. You've got to be willing to focus in on one important thing and put the others to one side for a bit. And then, even in this small area, if you try and do all the possible things to improve it, and there will be lots, you're not going to see that progress as much as if you pick one of them and again, let the others go. Furthermore, even with this approach, which is really effective, it's going to take time. If you get impatient and jump onto other things, you're not going to see the results, whereas if you're willing to chip away at this solidly over time, and it might feel slow as you're going through it, but you'll look back in 6 months or so and the progress will be amazing. And don't be tempted to move on to the next step too soon, to think you've got this step done, go back round the cycle too early. It feels like you're making faster progress at the time, but you're building shaky foundations, and all the work that you do in the future will be harder or less effective because it's not built on that really solid stuff if you take the time to do it properly first time round. And finally, don't get sidetracked with this talk of a specific target by the things that are the easiest to measure. Because although it's really important to measure things, you're much better off working on something that's really vital to you, which is hard to measure, you can only be a bit vague in it, than in working on something which is not so important to you, but is really easy to measure. You can get a very precise reading on it. So take the time to find some way, even if it's a little bit rough, of measuring the things that are most important to you, rather than, say, always getting carried away by, right, I'm going to up the speed that I can play this fast passage because I can measure it easily with a metronome. So that's it. If you'd like to find out more about what objectives to keep in mind when you're actually performing, then check out my video on process versus outcomes next. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to subscribe to the Play in the Zone YouTube channel right now. Just click on the subscribe button below this video. And if you know a musician who needs this information, then please make sure to share it with them. Also, if you want my practice and performance tips that I only share with subscribers, then head on over to playinthezone.com and sign up for the emails. They're free. And now it's your turn. The key to this is to get started right now, rather than waiting until you think you've worked out the objective that's absolutely perfect for you. So take a stab at what you think the first thing you want to work on might be, and let me know what it is in the comments below right now. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.